Hey friends, welcome back to the Empowered Homes podcast. As always, the purpose of this podcast is to grow strong families by connecting church and home. And if you are new here to the Empowered Homes podcast, my name is Meghan Landy. I am one of your co-hosts. My co-host Bobby Cooley is out hopefully fishing or enjoying some R&R on his sabbatical. But I'm so excited to be joined in studio by my new friend, Valerie Ellis. And today we are talking about how to connect kids to God through faith and fun. And Valerie, she is the founder of Our Everyday Parables. It's a multi-author online resource with book reviews and ideas for families pursuing faith and compassion. Valerie is a certified teacher. You have countless hours in children's ministry. Valerie writes books that serve kids at the intersection of faith and fun. She also is a frequent speaker and a nonprofit consultant in the Houston area. She lives with her husband, Josh, and her 2 kids. Also, fun fact, she was born in Ohio. I was born in Illinois, so we are fellow Midwestern girls at heart, but transplanted or moved to Texas. You say TCU Horned Frogs, right?
Yes.
Right? And you love live music and going on adventures, big and small, with your family and your friends. Valerie, I am so glad that you could join me in studio today to have this amazing conversation about storytelling and reading. So welcome to the Empowered Homes podcast.
It's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah. And, you know, your passion for reading and for getting resources into the hands of parents is evident in everything that you do. And you love to help families connect with God in everyday moments. And that is like-hearted for Empowered Homes. And so let's start off by talking about some simple, practical ways parents can connect with God, especially through Storytime.
Great. I love it. And I am really excited to share some practical ideas. But first, I want to start off with our attitude toward this topic. I know sometimes as parents, we can feel overwhelmed to start with. Mm-hmm. So if you are even listening to this podcast, give yourself a pat on the back. If you are taking a moment to pray or to think about how to disciple your kids, that is not nothing. So give yourself a big applause.
Absolutely.
And I want to just share 3 kind of things that you can do in everyday moments that build on each other to help your kids grow in faith. And so one is just laying that foundation, something that we probably want to do anyway, but sometimes we forget that, you know, our kids need that foundation of love and security before faith can even start to grow. And so just simple things like, well, we're talking about Storytime. So Storytime has that built-in security of this is how we do Storytime. We sit down, we turn the page. All of that built-in security helps them have that foundation. And then it has affection. So you're giggling together, or you're sharing a sweet moment, or you're cuddling. So Storytime kind of has that built in. And then we're planting seeds. So like you said, that can happen in the everyday moments of life. That maybe we're paying attention to what our kids are interested in and bringing faith into that. So if they're interested in creepy crawlies or, you know, electricity, all of those things we can think about, like how does that relate to our lives? How does that relate to faith? So one example I like to share about this time of year is something as simple as writing our kids' names on their school supplies. So something we have to do, but we can make it sweet. We can say, what's your favorite color? Get their favorite color of Sharpie, so they're having that foundation of feeling seen. And then as we're writing, just something as simple as, you know, as I'm writing your name on these, I'm just remembering God knows your name. Hmm. And then the last thing would be to branch out and kind of be like a vine reaching out in the garden to get our kids involved in the conversation. So this is the part that's the biggest struggle for me because I like to talk, I have all these ideas, but kids really learn the best when they are processing it out loud or when they're processing it themselves. And so maybe something like, you know, I wonder what you could pray about to God during school this year. Or have you ever felt a time where you felt cared for by God? What makes you feel cared for by God? So something that they are processing it. They're becoming part of the conversation. And that's not just important for their spiritual growth, but for ours as well, because often they'll come up with ideas that we wouldn't have thought of that speak to our hearts. And that just kind of reinforces that you're an important part of this family, of this conversation, of this body of Christ. And so all of that kind of builds together. And if you're thinking like, I am just barely getting them to school, I'm just barely getting them, to bed on time or not on time, we have a lot of resources at our Everyday Parables. I know you mentioned that in the intro. So our kind of 2 pillars are children's books and how to, whether it's a Christian book or a general market book, how to see God in the books, and then everyday moments. So we have a lot of ideas for you that have to do with the seasons or, different stages of life or things kids are interested in that can help you work that in.
I love that. Yeah, that Deuteronomy 6, right? Going about the way and walking and as you rise and as you lie down, and how are you using those everyday moments? And then using something so powerful as reading and writing and incorporating those things into the everyday. And I think about like my own struggle in terms of like, okay, it's summer right now as we're recording, it's summer, and my kids, they are like on devices all the time and want to be like face in the device, right? And so when they're little, it's hard to like pull them and distract them away from that because it's so compelling. And I love what you've done. You've written 2, you've actually written 3, but 2 unique books that kind of incorporate some modern elements into Bible stories that make it so fun. And so the first one that you've written and that's out is Let's Go Bible Adventures. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it right here on the screen. And then another book that's coming out in October is Wild Faith Devotional for Kids. If you want to show that, it's so pretty. I love that so much. But if you can really just kind of walk us through what inspired these ideas and kind of what do you hope for families to take away from their time sitting in this with their children?
Yes. I love these 2 together because I didn't plan it this way, but all of my books have come out of what can we do to link what kids are already interested in to the Bible. That's what really started me even writing on this journey. I didn't grow up thinking that I someday want to be a children's book author, even though I love it so much and it just feels like the right thing. But it really, the idea for Let's Go Bible Adventures was born out of my 2-year-old who really wasn't opinionated about many things, just only wanting to read books about cars and trucks. Sometimes animals, if they were rhyming, that was helpful, but only cars and trucks. So I would be bringing home these great Bible story books and, wanting to introduce God that way because we both loved books, and he would just literally close them. And so I was like, oh, this is more difficult than I thought it would be. Yeah. How can a tiny guy have so many opinions about books already? He's not really reading. So I just one day was shelving his books and I was just like, Lord, why aren't there cars and trucks in the Bible? That would make my life so much easier because then he would be asking to read it. And so I thought, well, I first of all, a lover of God's word. So I was like, well, that couldn't happen because that would be destroying the story. But what we ended up doing in the book is introducing the characters and then asking a silly question like, did God rescue Jonah with a submarine? A silly question about modern transportation. And then the kids get to be the smart ones. And they're like, no, that's silly. And you turn the page and then you read the real Bible story that has an application for their age group. So that book's more for like 2 to 6 years old. Okay, yeah. And so it's working in things that they love and making it just an easy win for parents and teachers to introduce the Bible stories. And then it has the Bible reference. So if the parent or teacher wants to learn more, because I know a lot of times we don't know these Bible stories, even as adults sometimes, and we're learning alongside of our children, which is great. And then it has a little rhyme at the end that all end with, we're on an adventure with God, let's go. And so when I do school visits, often by the end of the school visit, they're all saying it with me. We're on an adventure with God. Let's go. And we talk about what is an adventure with God. That's learning about God's plan for you and learning about how much he loves you and just embracing that throughout your life. So that's that one. And then the Wild Faith Devotional for Kids is for kids 7 and up, so a little bit older, because we're using analogies, which a lot of times younger kids don't really process that way. They're more concrete thinkers. But in Wild Faith, we're looking at animals and seeing how they point to God. So a lot of familiar animals that kids will love and see on a regular basis, and then a lot of lesser-known animals that will get them interested in, some new fun animals. And a lot of the kids' favorites these days, axolotls, narwhals, capybaras. So I'm just really excited about it. It's 52 animals, and it's just been really fun to learn the science and to really be rigorous about that, but also incorporate God's word and go a little bit deeper with that older age group.
That is so awesome. I love that you put the Bible reference in each story. And, you talked about how sometimes we're learning alongside our kids, which is so true. And then I think back to when I was little and hearing Bible stories and then going back and reading them as an adult and being like, oh, that was not exactly how it happened. And so I love that you encourage parents like, okay, read the fuller context and help your kids kind of move towards critically thinking about what they're reading, but also bringing in these really fun elements that help them critically think of like, no, that wasn't, you had one that was like a cattle truck, I think, for one of them,
Yes.
It's like, no, a cattle truck didn't come pick them up or whatever. So it's just so fun and interactive, and I appreciate it. And I love on your Let's Go Bible Adventures that our Pastor Ryan Roche, got to endorse that. So what a sweet thing for Empowered Homes in there on his little endorsement. Empowered Homes is mentioned in there.
Yes.
And so that is so cool.
That was such a delight.
Yeah, that's so neat. And then with Wild Faith, okay, I want you to share, like, do you have a favorite animal? And if you do, how does that animal point to God? How did you use it to point to God?
Well, my personal favorite animal is the octopus, because there are so many amazing things about the octopus. And so I kind of go through some of those fun facts in the book, but the one I really focus on is the fact that they can regenerate their arms just about as good as new. And I talk about how often when we face a loss, it feels like it will never be okay. And it may not be exactly the same, but God restores our hearts. And, maybe a more difficult topic for kids. And there are a lot of certainly lighter topics, but it is something that opens that door that they may not. I have one that will tell me every thought on his mind, and another that it's like 2 years later, I'll learn, oh, you had this struggle. Yes. Right. So, it's a way to invite kids to say, yeah, we know there are harder moments in life. And in each devotion, there's layers. So that's the starting point. And then we also talk about how it takes a long time sometimes for the octopus to regenerate that arm. And what can we do if it feels like healing is taking a long time for us? What can we look for? What words of love or, people in our lives is God using to help us along the way before we feel restored? So yeah, each one kind of has a couple layers. And so eventually, I don't think yet, but eventually there'll be a YouVersion online Bible study for 5 of the animals in the book, but they're shorter. So it was really hard for me to take it down to just the bare bones, because I love going in the layers and kind of getting a little bit deeper with it. So
I love that. And I love that it's been designed to be used by not just parents, but, for teachers or for ministry leaders. Like, you've been so intentional in allowing for other spaces and other leaders to use your books and use them as resources. And, you and I talked originally when we were talking about what we were going to have, the topic we were talking about on the podcast. We talked about reluctant readers and, those kids who they don't want to read, or like, my 15-year-old son, he went through a phase where he would not put down a book. And then we got him a new video game system and he was like, no.
What are books?
Yeah, exactly. And I think probably every parent experiences that, or we ourselves experience, a reluctance to reading. But, talk us about how you can help use these books and different topics like this to build and spark spiritual conversations, and then help kids take God's word and put it in their heart.
Yes, that's such an important question. And a lot of times as a book lover and kids who are book lovers too, I can kind of skip past this, but I know this is really important. And so I'll start with the youngest and then kind of go toward older. Yeah. So one thing is just to go at their own pace. And I'm thinking of like the tiny babies. Like, we know that reading is good for kids even from the womb. But if that little squirmy one just wants to read one page and then crawl around, that's fine. Or crawl around while you read. Just go at their own pace. And you can also use interactive books. So there's a great series with a book called Let's Play that has little dots that, the kids are pointing, and it seems like there's things changing on each page in reaction to what they're doing. And then my first book that came out, so Let's Go Bible Adventures was the first book I wrote, but this one snuck out before that. So it's Share the Joy, A Christmas Lift the Flat book. So it's great because it's about caring and sharing at Christmas, and kids can see the flaps, and it's very interactive. So books like that are great for little ones who are just very busy. And then something that's good for all ages is, setting up a cozy spot or maybe reading in a different spot if things are getting to where they're, maybe set up a tent or something that just piques their interest and makes it like, oh, this is something exciting that I want to be a part of. And then getting wild. Sometimes we think about bedtime as a quiet time, a time to calm down, and I'm for that. But sometimes to engage, we need to act out the book or sing along with the book or use funny voices. My husband's the best at that. And the only time is if he introduces too many voices and he forgets which one goes with which character, then I'm having the most fun because the kids are like, that's not it, Dad, you're doing the wrong voice. So, but then also, take a tip from, like when you're trying to serve your kids food, right? Often kids are most interested in what's on our plates and not what we give them. So sometimes I'll just leave books lying around or leave books on my desk. And still my 11-year-old will be like, what's that over there? Oh, this little thing? And so that can kind of get them interested. And then when they're older, even when they're younger, but we found a lot of fun listening to audiobooks. So I do count that as reading. Yes. And I feel like it has the same vocabulary. It teaches them the same kind of cadence. And it doesn't improve their fluency, but it does help with all those other reading skills. And so we'll listen to books, or often if I want to get my child interested in a book, I will listen to the first 2 chapters with them so they kind of have an anchor of like, ooh, I'm interested in this, and I didn't have to do the hard work of reading it. Yeah. And I have kind of these characters' voices in my head now, and now I'm going to go and finish the book on my own. So that's been really helpful if I do know that they need to work on their fluency, but they're having a hard time kind of getting into that book. And especially when they get older and it's not just picture books, that can be a difficult time too. Yeah. And then also sometimes we'll swap spots. So I've seen parents do this 2 ways. So one would be like, if you will read to me, I'll clean your room. Like while I'm cleaning your room, you're reading to me. So that's helping them work on that fluency. And then you're still having those bonding moments. Because the great thing about reading together is not just consuming the book, but those shared eye contact and jokes and things like that that's happening, whether it's an audiobook or they're reading to you or you're reading to them. And then my last tip is just to sometimes when they're older and they can read, we'll read side by side. So I love reading to my kids, but we're kind of past that age unless I push the envelope. So we'll read side by side. And sometimes that opens up even better conversations because you're not using your voice to read, then you're getting to talk about, well, what did that chapter say to you? And even if you maybe haven't read the entire book with them, you can still get some good conversation going. So,
that's such a good idea. I love that. And I think of the intentionality that does take to carve out the time. And, for our family, we've not been great and consistent about it, but the times that we talk about it before, we're proactive in going, okay, these nights, we're just reading. Like everybody's reading something on these nights. And, we try to do a family devotion also, but then just saying like, you have to have something to read. And when we protect that time, it's incredible that when we tell our kids ahead of time, they process it so much better and their frame of mind for reading is so much better. And they will just be like, oh, okay, tonight we're reading.
Exactly.
But if we spring it on them and we're like, okay, nope, you can't watch TV tonight, even though you planned on it, we're going to read. Then they're like, no, we're not. We don't want to do that. And then my son's just like, life is over. This is oppressive, 15-year-old angst. But yeah, so I love, those are such really sweet and good ideas and such a beautiful reflection of the tips and stuff that you have on both your website and Our Everyday Parables website. For parents, right? We're passionate about free resources at Empowered Homes, and you have some free resources and resources that parents and ministry leaders and teachers can use. And so if they visit your website, which is your name, ValerieEllis.com/books for free activity guides that go along with the books that you have, right?
Right.
And then if you go to oureverydayparables.com/books for free resources to help families of kids from ages 0 to 12 build their library wish lists or a home library. I love that. I downloaded that, and I'm so excited to dive into that. We have a ton of books already, but I'm like, okay, I need to organize them, and I need to keep the ones that really are relevant, and I need to donate the ones that are like, okay, we've grown out of those. And so I love that you can get started through that. And of course, we will link all of that information in the show notes to make sure that our listeners can download those resources, and then that they can also find your books. And then one other thing, I had a question I was going to ask you earlier, and I forgot.
Yes.
But we discovered that we both love libraries. And so I would love to know, where is your favorite library that you've ever visited?
That's such a hard question, because I've been to a lot of school libraries and seen some amazing libraries that are just filled with books and joy, and then you look out the window and then they have their outside reading space, and those are just the best. So to avoid having to pick a favorite library and get myself in trouble, no, I'll say that this summer we had the real treat of going to Germany with my husband's family, and we visited the Stuttgart City Library, which was beautifully designed, and it's very modern. And so on the 4th floor, when you look out, there's just this open space, and then floors and floors of books. And it's beautiful. And you can even take out art from that library. It has books in like 25 languages, and it has a coffee shop, so you really can't go wrong.
I mean, anywhere that has a coffee shop, you can't go wrong.
And rooftop views that are free. So it was an amazing place.
Yes, I love that. I love that libraries are such a place of calm, and just at every turn, there's some sort of adventure. And I also love that they really resource a lot of areas. Like if you go to different cities, they have games that you can check out. They have different types of book activities that you can check out. And so what libraries do for families is just so cool. And also, you know, what you're doing through your ministry at Our Everyday Parables, and just through your writing books, and using your passion that God has given you, and just what a special thing that He is, in the ways that He is using you to connect families to faith and to God, and to really to connect to one another in conversation and being together. And so thank you for the work that you're doing and allowing God to work through you. It's so incredible. It's
such a blessing, honestly, and to resource families, but also to hear family stories of how it's working for them and the ideas they have. It's just a joy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hey, listeners, we are going to give away some of Valerie's books. So you're going to want to head over to our social media. We'll have a giveaway very soon for that. We're so glad that you joined us today. We'll see you next time.